Hey, I hope that you are having a good day today. It's going to be beautiful here. We are continuing with lesson 2 of our astronomy, our solar system, and beyond from our Read Aloud anthology, Domain 7, lesson 2. First, we should have a little bit of vocabulary review, things that you will hear in our story today. Asteroids, it's a noun, small rocky bodies that orbit the sun and are smaller in size than a planet. Celestial bodies, noun, any object including planets, moons, stars, comets, meteors, which can be found in outer space. Comets, frozen balls of dust and ice whose orbits take them far out into the solar system. Core is a noun, a central inside part of a celestial body or other object, or you can even have core ideas. Debris, looks like debris. Debris, bits and pieces of leftover dust and rocks. Meteoroids, it's a noun, small pieces of metal or rock that travel through the solar system and that are much smaller than an asteroid. Satellites, it's a noun, natural or human-made objects that orbit around a planet or other celestial objects. Like Mars has 2 natural satellites that orbit around it, so another word for that would be moons. Terrain, the surface of the land and its features. So you will hear those vocabulary words as we read today's read aloud. So remember, astro means stars. We talked about astronomer, astrology, astrolabe. All of these words use astro. There are 5 characteristics that determine whether or not a celestial body or object in space is classified as a planet. You'll need to know all 5. Number 1, it's a sphere, has a large mass. 2, it orbits around a star in an elliptical path. 3, it has cleared most other objects from its path. 4, it's made mostly of rock or gas or a combination. 5, it does not make its own light. So you should be able to explain why the sun is not classified as a planet. Well, the sun does not orbit around a star. The sun is a star, and it makes its own light. Why is the Earth classified as a planet? Well, it meets all of the criteria, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. It's a sphere. It orbits the sun. It has cleared most other objects from its path, although it has captured the moon. It is made of rock and gas, and it does not make its own light. So today we're going to be learning more about some of the planets in our solar system. Our celestial bodies, or which celestial body is at the center of our solar system? A star. Solar, remember solar means sun. So it's our sun system. And Earth is the 3rd planet away from the sun. You will remember that. Please remember that any image that you see or poster will not be able to capture the actual sizes of our planets. They are too large and there's too much space in space. So sometimes in class, we go outside on a beautiful day and we try to figure out how much space there actually is in space. It's amazing. For example, if you used a yardstick to show that if the sun was 1 yard across, then Neptune, which is our farthest planet, would be about the size of a small lemon, and it would be 2 miles away. So walking 8 times around a running track would be about 2 miles. And on that same scale, if the sun is a yardstick wide, the earth would be about the size of a small marble. And if we shrank that distance down to fit on a piece of paper, we would not even be able to see Earth and Neptune. So we couldn't even put them as a dot on a paper. They would disappear. They were so small. So therefore, the scale of the papers that we see, or any posters that you see, they're not to scale, because in order for us to be able to put all of the 8 planets on there with the sun, we have to smash everything in, get rid of the space, and make them all pretty much the same size, which is not the case. Um, so it's sometimes fun to try to make a scale model, see if you can do it. One time we made a scale model with the sun the size of our school library, and it ended up that Neptune was about 40 miles away. Incredible to think about. So you can put that on a local map and see how much space there actually is in space. It's very eye-opening. Let's go ahead and read. Our solar system, part 1. Imagine traveling to a faraway world and encountering an extraterrestrial who asks, "Where in the universe is your school?" Remember, we're going to start with our space address, our school's name, our school's street number and street, the city or town, the state and zip code, our country, our planet, which is planet Earth. You will already know a lot about Earth, but if the extraterrestrial life form went on to ask, "So where exactly is planet Earth?" you would need to be able to include additional information about your planetary system. So, a planetary system is a group of objects in space that have come together to form a neighborhood, a very big, spacious neighborhood. Get it? Spacious. Little interplanetary humor. All planetary systems have a star at the center and a collection of planets and other smaller objects that orbit around it. We call the planetary system that we are part of our solar system. Solar means related to the sun, and our solar system is our sun and everything that orbits around it. The shape of Earth's solar system looks a lot like a bullseye target. The sun is the bullseye at the center, and the orbits of the 8 planets are similar to the rings around it. Astronomers know for certain about several hundred other planetary systems, but most astronomers believe there might be billions of other planetary systems in the universe besides our own. It's believed that our solar system formed a very long time ago from a huge cloud of gas and dust. Just how long ago did it form? A really long time ago. Many scientists think our solar system is about 4.5 billion years old. That's older than your great, 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 great grandfather. Actually, it's older than all of human existence, older than the dinosaurs, older than all the oceans and land masses, older than the Earth itself. Here are some of the things that you will find in our solar system. What exactly is our solar system? Well, you can think of our solar system as a gigantic neighborhood in space. But instead of being made up of houses or apartments like the neighborhood you might live in, our solar system is made up of the sun and the celestial bodies that orbit around it. Besides the sun, it includes other interesting things like planets and their moons, dwarf planets, satellites, asteroids, meteoroids, and comets. Our solar system is huge, so huge that some of the objects in it are billions of miles away from each other. In fact, the largest part of our solar system is the vast amount of space between all the celestial bodies that are in it. There's a lot of space in space. As you've heard, the sun is the center of this neighborhood we call our solar system. Our sun is a star, a gigantic, unbelievably hot mass of gas that makes light and heat for everything that orbits around it. The sun is so gigantic that Earth could easily fit inside it more than 1 million times. Take 1 million Earth marbles to be able to go inside the sun. Wow. There are 8 planets in our solar system. The planet Mercury is the closest to the sun, followed by Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. One easy way to remember the order of the planets is to remember this sentence. My very energetic mother just sent us nachos. Thanks, Mom. Beside these 8 major planets, there are also a number of smaller planet-like objects in our solar system classified as dwarf planets. Pluto is the most famous dwarf planet because it was considered to be a major planet until 2006, when astronomers discovered other small planet-like objects in our solar system. Many astronomers from all over the world met to discuss a new definition of what makes a planet. And why did Pluto get demoted or reduced in rank from planet to dwarf planet? Well, astronomers have agreed that a planet has to be able to clear its orbit of most other objects, such as asteroids and other space debris. Because it was so small, Pluto hasn't cleared these leftover pieces of rock and dust from its orbit yet. Pluto is now classified as a dwarf planet. My very energetic mother just sent us nachos. Planets, and I'm sure you've heard other sentences too. Go ahead and do that, whichever one works for you. Planets don't make their own light like stars do. When you look up and see a planet shining steadily in the night sky, it's shining because the planet is reflecting the sun's light, not because it's making its own. If the light you see appears to be twinkling, this is a star, not a planet. Each of the 8 planets in our solar system receives light and heat from the sun as it travels in its own special path or orbit around the sun. The orbits of the 8 planets get larger and larger the farther away from the sun they are. Mercury's orbit is the smallest because it is closest to the sun. Neptune's orbit is the largest because that planet is the farthest away. Many, but not all, of the planets have their own natural satellites or moons that orbit around them. Like Earth's moons, these moons travel around a planet at the same time that the planet orbits the sun. It is the light from our sun shining out into the solar system and being reflected back to us that allows astronomers to see a planet and its moons. Even though Earth has only one moon, some of the planets have many. In fact, one of Jupiter's moons, Ganymede, is larger than the planet Mercury. It's pretty cool. The amount of time it takes a planet to travel once completely around the sun in its orbit is called a planetary year. Planets closer to the sun have shorter planetary years than planets that are farther away. Mercury's orbit is the fastest of all 8 planets, taking only 88 Earth days to complete its planetary year. But Neptune takes 165 Earth years to go once around the sun. So a 100-year-old grandmother on Earth wouldn't even be 1 planetary year old if she lived on Neptune. Besides orbiting the sun, each of the 8 planets in our solar system also rotates on its own axis. Remember, the axis is that imaginary line that goes from a planet's north pole through to the south pole, right through its center. One day on a planet is the time it takes the planet to rotate one full time on its axis. Other planets have shorter and longer days than Earth. One day on Mercury takes about 58 Earth days because Mercury rotates on its axis very slowly. Jupiter's rotation, on the other hand, is much faster, clocking in at about 1 Jupiter day for every 10 Earth hours. So this bar represents a day. This is an Earth day. That's a Mercury day. This is a Jupiter day. Although the 8 planets in our solar system have a lot in common, they are also very different too. Many astronomers believe that all 8 planets have a solid core or rocky center, but the first 4 planets, those closest to the Sun, Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars, are small in comparison to the other 4 and have a solid rocky terrain or land surface that you could walk on if you visited them. The 4 planets farthest away from the Sun, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune, are called gas giants. Why? Because they are mostly made of gas. So you couldn't walk on their surfaces if you visited because there's no solid surface or terrain to walk on. The gas giants are also huge. Jupiter is so huge that more than 1,300 Earths could fit inside it. Most of the 8 planets have moons. Mercury and Venus are the only 2 planets in our solar system that do not have any moons. Moons are satellites or smaller objects that orbit around a larger planet. Earth's one moon is considered to be a satellite because it orbits around Earth. Now, humans have created artificial satellites that have been placed into orbit around Earth to aid in communication and research. And if you have a television or a phone or a computer, you are receiving signals from man-made satellites that are now in outer space. Besides the Sun, the 8 major planets, their moons, and dwarf planets, there are also other neighbors that help make up the neighborhood we call the solar system. These include asteroids, meteoroids, and comets. An asteroid is a space rock that does not have an atmosphere. An asteroid is too small to be classified as a planet because it does not have enough mass or substance to clear other objects and debris from its orbit around the Sun, and it may not be round. Most asteroids in our solar system, thousands of them, are located in orbit between Mars and Jupiter in a ring called the asteroid belt. The largest known object in the asteroid belt is Ceres, which is about as large around as the state of Montana is wide. Ceres, once classified as an asteroid, is now classified as a dwarf planet because it is spherical in shape. Because it has not cleared most of the other object in its orbit, Ceres is not classified as a planet. It is in the asteroid belt, which is so cool. Most asteroids are much, much smaller than Ceres. Many scientists believe that asteroids are material that was left over from the birth of our solar system. You might call them birthstones. Do you think a dwarf planet would really have a birthstone? Just a little more planetary humor. One of our neighbors in our solar system has 3 different names: meteoroid, meteor, and meteorite, depending on where you find it. Meteoroids are space debris made up of rock or metal that range in size from tiny pebbles to large boulders. Many scientists believe they may have broken off from other objects in our solar system, such as asteroids. They're called meteoroids when they are orbiting the Sun in space. But once they enter Earth's atmosphere, they're called meteors. Meteors are also known as shooting stars because they leave a bright streak or a line of light that shoots through the sky. This streak of light is caused when the meteor burns up on its downward journey through Earth's atmosphere. Most meteors are small enough that they burn up completely before reaching Earth, but sometimes the larger ones make it to the surface. Meteors that reach the surface of the Earth are called meteorites. Sometimes very large meteorites leave large craters or pits on the surface of the Earth. Meteoroid, meteor, meteorite. Did you know that there are snowballs in space? It's true. They're called comets. Actually, a comet is a chunk of ice, dust, and gas that orbits the sun in a long, stretched out circle. A comet begins in the outer reaches of our solar system, and occasionally its orbit brings it in close to the sun. As the comet approaches the sun, part of the ice evaporates, making it glow and form a bright tail that trails behind it, sometimes for millions of miles behind it. Comets shine like this because sunlight reflects off the tiny particles of dust that are in the comet's tail. Halley's Comet is a very famous comet that was discovered by English astronomer Edmund Halley. He was the first to realize that it was the same celestial body that returned to Earth's skies every 76 years. In the year 1705, he correctly predicted that the comet would return by the year 1758. The comet was then named Halley's Comet in his honor, and it was last seen from Earth in 1986. I actually got to see it, had to climb up on a mountain. So you know that you can describe our solar system as a very large neighborhood in space. It's made up of many interesting neighbors, including the sun, 8 planets, their moons, dwarf planets, asteroids, meteors, and comets. Our solar system is only one of many planetary systems in the universe, and it's a great place in the universe to live. So, some questions. What is our solar system? It's the sun and all of the objects that are in orbit around the sun. What kinds of celestial bodies can be found? Well, planets, their moons, dwarf planets, asteroids, comets, meteoroids, and other space debris. Can you list the order of all 8 planets from the sun? And that's where one of your sentences might come in handy. If you are not sure of a sentence, use this one. My very energetic mother just sent us nachos. My is Mercury, very, Venus, energetic, Earth, mother, Mars, just, Jupiter, sent, Saturn, us, Uranus, nachos, Neptune. It'll just help you remember that. And which 4 planets form a group closest to the sun? The inner planets, rocky planets, terrestrial planets, Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars. And what characteristics do they share? They all have a core, rocky terrain, much smaller than the other 4 planets, inside the asteroid belt. So describe the asteroid belt and tell where it is found. It's a large ring, it's a ring of very large and small asteroids orbiting the sun between Mars and Jupiter. It contains the dwarf planet series. Which planets are next in sequence after Mars in the asteroid belt? Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. And what characteristics do those 4 planets share? They are very large. They have an inner core. They are very far from the sun, and they are mostly made of gas. They do not have a solid rocky terrain. They're called gas giants. How is a comet like Halley's Comet different from an asteroid? An asteroid is made up of rocky or metallic material, like a small planet. Many are found in the asteroid belt. A comet is made up of a lump of ice and dust and gas, and a comet's ice melts as it gets close to the sun. How are they similar? This is comparing and contrasting. They're both part of our solar system. They both orbit the sun. Some are similar in size. How are, let me see, these three images, come back to image 5. Okay. Um, what are these? What are we seeing here? Well, a meteoroid is the name of a piece of space junk, space debris. If it enters the planet's atmosphere, it's called a meteor. And when we can see it burning up, we call it a shooting star. If it hits the planet, it's called a meteorite. And if it's big enough, it can create a crater. What is a dwarf planet? Well, it's a spherical celestial body that orbits the sun, but it has not yet cleared space debris from its orbit. It hasn't collected it or shot it out. And what two dwarf planets did you hear about today? Ceres and Pluto. Compare and contrast Ceres and Pluto and the 8 major planets. So there are the 8 major planets. Here's little Ceres. And Pluto would be well beyond Neptune. It's way out there, much, much farther than the space between Uranus and Neptune. Like I say, these views of our solar system are so deceptive because they are never lined up, and the planets are so minuscule compared to the amount of space that they're really difficult to find out exactly where they are and track them. So if we were going to compare and contrast Ceres and Pluto, we would say, like some of the planets, Ceres and Pluto are rocky, spherical, celestial bodies that have a regular orbit around the sun. They are smaller than all but Mercury and have more debris than the other planets in their path of their orbits around the sun. That's why we cannot call them planets. They have not cleared out the space debris or the little space junk. Hey, nice job. We've learned a lot about our closest neighbors in space.